So good to see you all again, and thanks for coming to our second webinar of the month of May, which is the mental health awareness webinar, which runs in line with Mental Health Awareness Week, which is taking place this week. So thanks everyone for coming. Tonight we have two fantastic speakers. So Pauline, who's going to talk about her journey as well as mental health awareness as well. So really looking forward to hearing from you, Pauline. And we've also got another person called Abdi as well, who's also going to talk about his journey with mental health as well. So you've got two fantastic talks coming right up. So I'm Andy Shaw. I'm the chair of the South Yorkshire BCS branch, and at the moment we've run this is the second webinar which we've run as well, which actually been quite fun to do. We've also got Eve from the branch, Martin from the branch. Our meetings are all online until further notice. We've got another meeting this month as well, which is about software testing, which I'll tell about later on. But now I give you Pauline, who is going to talk about her journey with mental health. So Pauline, take it away, and everyone else, be inspired.
Hello, what an introduction. Right, so I'm just checking everyone can see my screen. I just realized everyone is on mute, so no one can tell me otherwise, but I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah.
So, oh, awesome. That's good confirmation. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Pauline. It's great to see so many of you virtually. I hope that you're all doing well and staying safe during this time. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to Andy for getting me involved in this virtual event for Mental Health Awareness Month. It's always such an honor to give these types of talks, and especially this one for this month. I'm really excited to share a bit of my journey and have a bit of half an hour or so just being completely vulnerable and being completely honest with my story. I'm hoping that by the end of this, you also leave with some practical tips to use in your day-to-day life, especially during this time. So on the screen here, you should be able to see my Twitter handle. So feel free to tweet as I'm talking. It's always awesome to have the conversation flowing on social media about mental health. So great, amazing. Okay, so just a bit of an introduction. I'm Pauline Narvas. I like to wear a lot of different hats. So I'm a creator and a blogger, and I frequently write blog posts about topics that are really important to me, and this includes mental health and well-being. In addition to that, I am a digital engineering graduate at BT. I'm currently on the BT graduate scheme. I'm currently in my final rotation in the site reliability engineering team, and I finish in September, so a bit scary but very exciting. I'm also an advocate for equality in the tech space, working closely with various tech initiatives to improve the bridge into tech for women and minority groups. So yeah, I do quite a lot. I'm based in Leeds, but I grew up in Sheffield, so being invited to events that are specifically for the Sheffield folks, it's always really special, and I always have a very special place for Sheffield in my heart, so it's nice to be here. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to share this talk then, just to tell you about my mental health story. And if I'm being completely honest with you all, I was like most people up until recently, where I thought that mental health didn't really matter. I didn't really view it as a high priority, and I didn't really think that it was that important. And it got to a point that I just didn't believe that it would ever happen to me, or something I ever had to experience. So yeah, it's quite sad because that was where I sort of started, and obviously as I've gone through this journey, I've realized that there's a lot more to it. So yeah, I like to start off with the fact that these are honest feelings of shame. So when I started becoming more aware that, you know, mental health is important and that it is real, I started to realize that I was having some mental health issues of my own, and the first emotion that I felt was shame. And it's really important to be honest about that, because then we could see that over time it has changed. So I think it's also important to point out that this original thinking from me, from my story personally, was from the fact that I grew up in a Filipino and Catholic family where mental health was literally unheard of, and if it was discussed, it was a very, very taboo topic. I would also say that, like, at the time, unlike today, mental health wasn't taken very seriously at all. So yeah, this was my starting point, and whenever I discuss like my memories of my school days, they are often like quite negative. So I think this is where it all started. So growing up, I was bullied at school for being slightly different from everyone else. I had very different interests to most people. At school, I was interested in blogging and web development. So I spent a lot of my lunch times going to the library to write blog posts or to code. And I was picked for it for a really long time. So I was picked on for having different hobbies, for having really weird curly hair, because when I was growing up, I had really big curly hair. And yeah, people used to make fun of that, and just generally how I looked. And to be honest, mostly everything. I was just picked on a lot at school, and most days I didn't even want to get up from bed to go to school. I just started to believe that what everyone was saying was true, and you know, that I was too ugly, I was too fat, I was too brown. I've heard all of it, too dumb. Yeah, so my lack of self-confidence followed me throughout the rest of my days at school and at the start of university. I had pretty low confidence. I was constantly paranoid around other people and experienced a lot of general anxiety about literally everything. So for the longest time, I suffered from social anxiety to the point that I would refuse to be anywhere in public, or if I could avoid it, if I could avoid it, the anxiety would just be so suffocating. Being anywhere in a public place gave me like so much anxiety that I would just rather spend my days at home, just away from everyone else. My mental health was all over the place when I got to university, so the anxiety was still there. You know, meeting new people in first year was an absolute nightmare. I just didn't want to do it. I just lacked that self-confidence from the beginning, and even like as I was going through university, the work I was producing and the things that I contributed to just led me to feel like I was just inadequate compared to everyone else. So during this time, because I felt like I was just terrible at everything, I looked to very unhealthy habits. And this actually led to something I don't really talk about that much, but it's I actually ended up doing a lot of excessive gaming, to the point it was super unhealthy. It was like no sleep, just games constantly. And just, it was like a place for me to hide behind a character. And to be honest with you, most of my first and second year at university was an absolute blur. I just remember gaming a lot, barely passing, and suffering from panic attacks and severe anxiety that I was feeling in my body a day in, day out. I had to like leave some of these some lectures because I couldn't just sit there feeling like I was about to have a panic attack. So at the end, sometimes I just didn't go back to the lecture. And throughout this whole experience, I still refused to even acknowledge my mental health. I just didn't want to be labeled as someone who had these problems, even though deep down I knew I was suffering silently. All I felt was shame. It's always huge life events that can either break you or be pivotal, be a pivotal part of your growth. And that's actually what happened to me. I had a huge life event, which I won't go into detail, but it was probably one of the worst periods of my life. It felt like my anxiety kept me up throughout that period. I never slept. It felt like I didn't sleep for weeks. And after another anxiety-induced panic attack that happened silently in my bedroom, I remembered that I just couldn't live like this anymore, and something had to change. So for me, it led to kindness. So this is a general theme that you might have all seen for Mental Health Awareness Week and Month. So people all over social media are talking about kindness and being kind to yourself, kind to other people, and especially in our current circumstances, it is so important. So kindness, this was a different phase in my life where it was like the first step towards change. So that first step actually included me sitting down with friends and family and telling them about how I was feeling. It was really scary to open up, but I knew that I just needed to talk. Most of the responses actually surprised me. They were full of compassion, love, and support, rather than the backlash that I thought I would receive. Most people said that they didn't even know that I was dealing with so many demons in my head because I seemed fine on the outside, and most people do. It was at that moment I truly realized how important mental health is. People seem fine all the time, but you never really truly know what other people are going through. People say that all the time, but when you actually go through the situation yourself, it just becomes so obvious. So this new discovery for me really changed my mindset on everything, but especially on the quick judgment of others. Kindness to each other is so important, but it's also so important to ourselves. It took finally speaking up about my experience throughout the years and how that affected my mental health and self-confidence to make me realize that. And after speaking up, I received the right support for me. It all sort of snowballed into something so positive, so impactful, and so positive long term in my life. Today I've implemented healthier ways to deal with my anxiety, healthier ways to calm myself down, to make sure that I truly take care of my mental health as much as I do my physical health. And I truly believe that these habits have made me a happier person and improved my mental health for the better. So I wanted to actually share some of these with you today. They are especially important, like I said, in today's crisis, but where those same feelings I described can crop up more often than ever because we have more time at home, more time in our heads, and it's so important to be aware of them and be able to have these great habits to sort of not completely change how you're feeling, but guide you in the right way. So yeah. In terms of so this next bit, I'm going to talk about changing my outlook and what worked for me. I think it's really important for me to stress that what I'm about to talk about is things that worked for me, and I totally understand that some of the things I talk about isn't as accessible to other people, or people have tried it before and it hasn't had the same effect. So everything I'm saying is just suggestions and from my personal experience. But again, feel free to put on the chat or ask questions later about anything that you feel like worked for you. So the first thing for me was speaking to others. This is so obvious to a lot of people, but it took me ages to come out of my shell and actually put my hand up and be like, actually, I need help and I need support because I don't know what's going on. I feel this, that, or the other. I need someone to talk to. So yeah, like I shared in my story, speaking to other people about how you're feeling is transformative. Speak up and have a chat with a friend, a family member. And if you can't do that for any reason, there's plenty of support out there for you to still have these conversations. So I've actually added a link here for you to look at. After this session, I'm more than happy to share a link to my slides. So yeah, you can get direct access to this NHS page, which has some really great mental health helplines for you to speak to, if that works for you. The second mindset shift and something that worked for me was that I went out to find the support structure that was right for me. So this is sort of similar to my previous points, but reach out to like the various mental health organizations and charities. They have some fantastic resources and support structures that can really help you with how you're feeling. I've included another list here for you to have a look at. Again, it has another list of organizations and resources for you to look at and explore. And also just to point out, it might also be worth reaching out at work to see what support systems they have in place. Back at university, when I actually felt empowered to finally reach out, I actually visited the mental health services that were available to me as a student at the University of Sheffield. And some days it was just nice to know that it was there and I could literally just leave a lecture and go and have a chat with someone if I didn't feel comfortable chatting to anyone else about how I was feeling. It was like a really nice space for me to feel safe and not alone. Another thing about support systems like these are like people are usually very supportive and they don't judge you. You can literally say everything and anything to them and they are just there to listen, and it's really, really nice. Sometimes that's all we need. So yeah, today work, universities, schools have really stepped up their approach towards mental health, and it's so refreshing to see. I empower you today to spend a few minutes looking at the support structures available to you. Currently at work with the coronavirus situation, I've noticed that at work they've really stepped up the resources that they provide to employees now that, you know, we have to adjust to so many different things like working from home or just dealing with the uncertainty. And it's been really, really nice to know that the leadership team and the whole company actually care about us as people rather than just thinking of us as, like, you know, employees or resources. They truly do care about us. So it is definitely worth having a look at that wherever you work as well. So this one is a long one because this is one that genuinely changed my life, and it is implementing healthier habits. So what I'm about to talk about is moving our bodies, exercising, improving your eating habits, doing meditation, and maybe even some journaling. This again is one of those areas that I know has worked for me. I know has worked for a lot of people, but I know that sometimes exercise and all the other things I'm about to talk about just doesn't work for some people, and that's completely okay. But I'm really passionate about this area, and I really want to communicate that with you today. So it has been proven time and time again that exercising is good for you. When you exercise, you release endorphins, which are these feel-good hormones that will elevate your mood. Doing something physical as well can help reduce overall stress and feelings of anxiety and depression. Another good thing is that you tire yourself at the end of the day, so you do end up sleeping better, and at least that's what I found. And I've actually been making sure that I exercise every single week at least once since I began improving my mental health journey in 2016. Personally, this has been vital to my well-being and improving my mental health. You don't even need to have a gym setup or even step foot at the gym. Body weight exercises or going out for a walk or running daily is more than enough. But for people who do want to get started in like the fitness side of things, then I highly recommend this YouTube channel. It's got a funny name, but trust me on this, check them out. They're called Fitness Blender on YouTube, who offer a range of free body weight exercises, and they're fantastic. Also, try improving your eating habits. There's also been research that has found a strong correlation between eating healthy and good mental health. And this, again, I need to stress this, it doesn't mean no treats, but it means rather being more mindful of what you consume. And again, I recommend checking out this Eat Well guide from the NHS. Meditation. So meditation, like exercise, has been so pivotal for my wellness journey. Taking the time out to calm myself down after a long day or just before a day starts has been so positive on my mental health. Sometimes just being with your breath, slowing down and having that intentional time with yourself is what we need in our 24/7 world. If you're just starting out with meditation practice, I highly recommend to check out Headspace or Calm. They've got some fantastic follow along meditation practices that range from 5 to 30 minutes. I also actually have 5 free Calm golden passes. So if you're interested in having like a bit of a trial for 30 days, get in touch with me. You can unlock the whole app. And lastly, journaling. So I find the practice of journaling and writing very similar to speaking to other people. It's been nice to sometimes just write down how I was feeling and explore the reasons as to why I was feeling the way I was. Regular reflective journaling paired with gratitude journaling is a positive exercise for your mind. I highly recommend the 5-minute journal to get started. It's a great way to have a bit of a template because I know sometimes you just get stuck on what to write, but sometimes like having that template and a bit of guidance is really, really positive. Highly recommend 5-minute journal. They have an app as well as a physical journal if you prefer that. Another thing I would recommend is to reduce your reactiveness. So I'm actually so guilty of spending too much time reacting to things on social media, and recently the news for new information, because I just want to know right there and then what's happening. And long term, this habit isn't good at all. Your brain is constantly looking for that addictive hit. It's what actually keeps a lot of us hooked on these platforms, and the first step to fighting this dangerous cycle is just to be mindful of your consumption. So are you spending too much time in it? Why? Are you bored? Is there something better to do? Find an alternative if possible. Honestly, I spent I think it was like 2 weeks detox from social media, and I focused on just finishing off all my books. And it was like a mini experiment I did last year because I love social media. I'm always on social media. So I did that for 2 weeks, and oh my gosh, I felt so much better. I just felt so much slower and calmer. And sometimes that's what you need, especially if you're like me and you're just constantly on the go. That's not healthy for your mental health at all. So make sure you reduce that reactiveness that you feel. Another thing is to do what you love more often. And my previous point actually leads me beautifully onto this point, and it's doing what you love more often. Especially during lockdown, it might be a great opportunity for you to revive something that you used to love to do. I know personally this has been for me creating videos. It was like a hobby of mine for a while, but I stopped because of how busy life has become. But I've started up the hobby again, and I remembered how much I love it. I've also just been getting lost in loads of different books, and it's just been so much fun. So spend more time during this lockdown to focus on what you actually love doing. And the more you do what you love, the more you feel more positive and happy overall. So yeah, make sure that you don't always have to be like working or working towards something. Sometimes just doing something you love, even if that doesn't gain anything like long term, is all you need. And finally, this again goes back to the theme of kindness, is to practice more self-kindness. Don't pressure yourself into doing loads of different things during lockdown, like learning a new skill or learning all that productivity thing that you keep seeing all over social media. That's not what you should be doing, especially during this time. I think our world has flipped a little bit, and it seems like the more stuff you do, the better you become, but that's not the case at all. And personally, that's come from me. I've learned that firsthand from, I literally spent 1 year, it was like 2018, and I just did everything I could possibly do, and it wasn't good for my mental health, and it just led to burnout, and overall just I felt sad and depressed, even though it was stuff I love doing. So just make sure that you practice more of that self-kindness, be more gentle with yourself. It's okay to do nothing productive. It's okay just to sit and watch Netflix. It's okay if you're just doing nothing. If you just want to stare at a wall or spend more time with your plants or something, that's completely fine. Be kinder to yourself, because life is not a race, and that's something I've learned throughout this whole journey. I've learned that the more I slow down and the more I become mindful of how fast I'm going, the more I feel calm in my head, and just overall well-being is just better. And also, just to add to this one, I actually saw this on the tweets before I got onto this call, but it's a good reminder to say that you aren't your job, and you aren't your recent projects, you aren't what you create. So stop defining yourself on your job, all these projects, or what you create. There's so much more to someone and to you than just what you do. So yeah, that's also worth bearing in mind. Practice the self-kindness, because we're not productivity machines. And I've actually written a few blog posts around mental health and wellness. I go into further detail and share some resources and stuff like that. So feel free to check out the various blog posts on my blog, pauline.com. They might be of value to you. I talk about everything from health, wellness, mental health, and things like burnout as well. So yeah, feel free to check that out. And just want to say thank you again for listening, and feel free to connect with me on social media. It's so important to stay connected throughout this time, and just a reminder, we're all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pauline, for that. We want to tell the audience that they can add questions onto the panel on the right-hand side. So if you have any questions for Pauline, and then further down when Abdi will be speaking for Abdi, please add them there, and then we will come back to them. Unfortunately, we have a bit of a technical difficulty, like always. So I will pass over to Abdi to introduce himself, and hopefully we'll get his presentation up soon as well. So please, if you have any questions, this is the time to ask any questions, and we'll pick them up as well. So otherwise, Abdi, are you able to introduce yourself? Hello, Abdi, can you hear us?
Abdi, can you hear us at all?
So it says that the audio pin wasn't entered. 2 seconds. Let's see. In the meanwhile, I have a question for Pauline, if that's okay. Pauline, you mentioned that you when there was one slide about self-actualization. Was that it? Which I found really. Sorry.
Was it self-kindness, that one?
Before the self-kindness, about the one. It was the self-kindness one, and I really enjoyed the fact that you mentioned about you know, not defining yourself as your job or project. Is that like was that like a theme or something, or do you want to talk a bit more about that if possible?
Yeah. So this is so for those who don't know, I graduated from the University of Sheffield. I did biomedical sciences, and then I pivoted towards tech. And as I was going through my tech journey to try and you know, get my foot in the door, and stuff like that, I basically did all sorts of things. I tried to get involved with every single tech thing that was going on locally and globally, online, everywhere. I was trying to get involved, and every single time I found myself, whenever I achieved something in like the tech space, I immediately put that label on myself, and I was like, okay, I've achieved this now, and so this label defines me. So for example, I won a few awards in 2018, which I was very thankful for, you know, all the women in tech stuff that I was doing at the time, and it was all really great. But I found myself putting these labels and defining myself and my worth based on how many awards I was nominated for, or how many I don't know, like courses I could teach to other people. And although all those metrics and, you know, job achievements and everything like that is really important to build your career, sometimes we just need to like come back down a little bit and think about how we shouldn't be defining ourselves based on all our achievements, because we are more than just our achievements. We are more than our job titles. We are people first and foremost. So yeah, I think it's just one of those things that people often forget when we all get wrapped up in our 24/7 world. People just forget that when they, you know, you see it all the time on social media, when someone wins an award or they get promoted, it's all really fantastic stuff, but then you like speak to them, and you realize that even though they're like all amazing and sparkly on social media, and you know, they have this new job and they achieve this thing, but when you actually speak to them in person or like one-to-one, you realize that, you know, we're all just human. But I think what happens is we end up like putting people on like these like stools or like thrones, and we're like, okay, this person has achieved this, it's fantastic, we'll just put them on this throne and they're wonderful, they're perfect, blah, blah, blah. And then that person who sat there is often like, oh yeah, I am amazing, I am great. And that's all fantastic. But then it can get to a point where it's like, okay, what is the next big thing I need to achieve so I can feel good about myself, so that I can feel like I can define my success as me, and that's me. So whatever I achieve, that is me, that defines me, and I'm not useful in like society otherwise. So yeah, I think I've started to see it a lot more now. I think it's always been in the background, but I think now, you know, with the rise in people doing like side hustles and online stuff, I think there's more of a rise where people tend to view themselves as you know, how much they can produce, how much they can create and give back to the world, when sometimes we need to take a step back, calm down, take a break, and be like, okay, I'm giving so much to other people. I'm defining myself based on external things. Sometimes we just need to look at ourselves in a more mindful way and just be like, actually, I am more than my job title. I am more than all my projects that I've ever worked on. I'm just human, and sometimes we just need that reminder to be kinder to ourselves, because yeah, I just don't think I don't think it's practiced enough, and it's certainly something that has happened to me personally, because I've often done that, you know, like I said, in 2018 when I was winning those awards, and whenever I create or do something positive for like other people or externally, it's all really well and good, but sometimes, especially for our mental health, we need to focus on ourselves, and we need to stop putting that pressure on ourselves, because it's not healthy long term. We will burn out. So yeah, that was a very, very long explanation. So it just came from my heart.
Thank you, Pauline. I have two people who said, so here said, this is a very good and honest. Thank you, Pauline. Catherine also said, thank you, Pauline, for sharing your journey. And Sam has a question for you related to Eve's question. Any tips to detach your mood from your work? I recently started learning to code and found myself in a bad mood for a day because I couldn't work something out. So if you can answer that question, and just to let everyone else know that Abdi is now has solved some of his difficulties with the tech. So once Pauline answers her question, we'll pass over to Abdi to introduce himself.
Okay.
Okay, fab. Could you just repeat the question, Eve? Was it about what exactly?
Yeah, so any tips to detach your mood from your work? I recently started learning to code and recently found myself in a bad mood for a day because I couldn't work something out. This was from Sam.
Okay, that's a really good question. And can I just say, same, I've been there. Like, I'm sure everyone has. So yeah, detaching your mood from your work, that's a really tough one, because I admit I am quite a workaholic, and sometimes I need to do talks like these to remind myself, and do more journaling practices to remind myself to like sort of like take it in a little bit. So my main thing would be, you just need to keep reminding yourself that even if you can't solve this problem now, that doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you're like missing the point or whatever. The fact is, sometimes, especially with coding, you need to just take a step back, because that's how your brain works. Your brain is like working super hard to solve this problem, but at the end of the day, walking away is the most productive thing you can do. And one thing I've been doing recently, because I've struggled with this, especially when I'm working from home, and there's obviously no one I work with at home right now, and so normally when I'm in an office setting, I have engineers all around me, and normally I just go up to them and I'm like, can you help me with this? Can you explain this to me, because I don't understand it? And so because I don't have that support system as much anymore, I have spent hours just being in front of my laptop trying to solve a code problem, which I just can't do. And one thing that my colleagues have actually suggested to me to, you know, disassociate myself for a bit, is to actually time myself. So I know that sounds a bit stressful, but put like 2 hours away, and if you can't figure it out in those 2 hours, take a break and just do something else. Our brain literally needs that context switch to maybe figure it out unconsciously, and then the next time you look at it, it will just be better. So in terms of like dissociating, that timer really helps. It sort of like brings you back to like the real world for a bit, if that makes sense. So what I've been doing, I actually did today, is I've started doing that timer method, and I've just been, if I can't figure something out, or I'm stuck on something and my timer goes off, I just go off and just do something else. I take care of my beautiful plants, or do something else, look outside the window, and that usually helps. So yeah, time yourself, try that. That's probably the most practical thing to do.
Yeah. Pauline?
Yes.
Really fantastic presentation, and it's been brilliant. One quick question I'm just going to ask you is, do you have a cut-off point from things like social media? or anything like that to help you sort of recharge as well? Because that's one thing I've started doing as well, sort of about a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so on most phones nowadays you have like screen time restrictions.
Yeah.
So one thing I've been doing is I try and limit myself during the week for at least like 1 hour. I've actually put it down for an hour a day on social media, on certain apps, because I can spend hours scrolling on them. So yeah, definitely have these restrictions on social media because they will suck out the life out of you. I love social media. I think I've connected with so many amazing people around the world because of it, and it's fantastic. But I think you do need to like chill out a little bit and just like restrict yourself. Also switch off all your notifications on Twitter, Instagram, and all of those. I don't have any notifications on my phone apart from calls and texts. I literally have no notifications, and it's done so much for my mental health. And I actually covered this whole topic around social media and walking away from social media, coming from someone who is addicted to social media. It will go into much more detail there, so feel free to check out that blog post. And yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Pauline. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to Abdi, who I've met before, and I've also had the honour of also delivering a talk with Abdi back in August of last year as well. So Abdi is another amazing person who I think is really, really inspiring. Listen now to his journey as well, and be inspired.
Hello, everyone. So I just want to present my journey today in university and just talk about my journey with mental health and how I overcame some of my challenges and what I've learned from it altogether. So you can just go next. Thank you. So I just want to talk a bit about my credentials, my background, and quickly just mention a few things. So I'm just completed a master's degree in IT management at Sheffield Hallam University. I'm also a former graduate with a BSc honours degree in business information technology with a placement year. So my background's primarily in IT field, and I've also worked in a wide range of fields, including IT, data analysis, administrative, events, and marketing. And I think all those experiences have helped me become the person I am today through work. And so that's just a bit about me. And so really, at a young age, I did struggle with mental health at the time. But my interest in IT started with video games as a very good outlet. And this has inspired me to basically get involved in IT because I got exposed to video games. I did fail at school and college level at the time, and it did had a strong effect on how I turned out in the end in full university and how I overcame some of my academic challenges as well. And also I got a keen interest in business and IT, so I did watch a lot of TV shows that inspired me to get involved in IT and see how IT is used in a business context. Next, if that's okay. And before university, I wasn't honest with my health at the time. I did struggle with my health, and at the time I went through clearing, and through clearing, I had an opportunity to get one last chance to get into university to prove that I can get my degree and I can make myself a success. And in the summer of 2013, I've secured my place on my business IT degree at the time, and it had changed my life for the better. And through the early days of university, it was very challenging at the time because, I failed a lot of assessments at the time, and the assessments was very, very hard on me. I struggled a lot in my first year with mental health, with homesickness, not talking to people, and I was in a way prepared to fail at the time. Next. And throughout my challenges, it had a strong effect on how I attained my degree early on. But the hardest thing that I had to go through was physical and mental health, probably during my second year and during my final year at the time. I did sort out placement at the time, just to be able to get that confidence and be able to get that work-life experience. And it was a struggle at the time, dealing with my mental health and trying to secure a placement year. A lot of the self-doubt came in my studies, but my placement year was very beneficial. It changed me for who I am, to be a person to work in the IT field. It taught me a lot more in depth and the real world context of IT. It also gave me my first time experience working in the industry, and it also gave me the opportunity to really grow as a person. I can go next. And I have a lot of achievements that I've gained from my year, just highlighted on screen. I became ITEL qualified, and it gave me a clearer picture of my future, from being the person that didn't have the confidence or the willpower to go for university to come out the other side a lot better, a lot stronger. Next. And this next. And this is just some of my achievements that I've had. But through it all, I've had personal issues as well, personal circumstances that really had a strong effect in how I deal with those challenges. And I had nearly considered dropping out during my final year numerous times, because I had a 2-year break. And over those 2 years, I had a lot of health decline. Okay, next. This is just an example, my time in hospital, through my interview with human of leads and various outlets raising awareness on mental health. And through it all, I've learned to not only raise awareness, but also support students that have had difficulties with academic experience. And in my final year, I came back a lot stronger, including becoming a student representative at the student union and becoming a very high-level student officer through challenging the status quo by raising awareness, by hosting workshops and events around mental health. I also redesigned my Beckett to help accessibility for disabled students and non-disabled students at the university through a product report that I wrote, which contained 40,000 words altogether. And I've been volunteered in at least 30 different roles in different areas within the university. Next. And coming back to my degree was very hard at the time, but I've got a lot to look forward to now with how I can better myself and how I can go for a great career in the future. And currently just about to finish my master's degree in IT management, and it's been very enjoyable experience. It's been life-changing. It's opened a lot of doors. Sheffield Hallam University is a strong university, very supportive, and I've built a well-minded friends and acquaintances throughout my time at university. Next. Education has changed my life through the highs and the lows of the academic experience. It helped me not only better myself, but also deal with the challenges that some students can face as a result of being in a highly pressurized environment, and come out the other side a stronger person. And now what the future holds is, I had a choice between either doing a PhD or PGCE, and I decided to take the PhD offer to train up as a teacher in September 2020. And I'm starting my subject knowledge and access course, which is a pre-course for the PGCE now, actually. And I'm trained up to be as a trainee teacher for the coming future. And it's not what you achieve, but it's what you overcome. I believe that's what defines people's career, and having the heart to be able to openly talk about any challenges you face and be able to share your struggles and raise awareness. Thank you. And if you want to stay in contact, I am on social media, so thank you for everything. And the end.
Thank you, Abdi, for that. If you, as mentioned, if you have some questions for Abdi as well, please add them into the questions box, please. While we're waiting for any questions for Abdi, just going to read the ones for Pauline again. So Jonathan Fryer said, loved your points, Pauline. If there is a sound, it sounds as though it is important to be able to pass the baton with awards. If you're an acknowledged expert in something, at some point, someone else will overtake you and you need to be able to let that go. Probably not easy sometimes. I think that's a very good point. Do you want to add anything to that, Pauline?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's one of the things that that was constantly in my head when I was like going through this phase and, you know, trying to prioritize my mental health, but also try to be really successful. I was always like, oh, but if someone overtakes me, or if I don't know, I just have to work 10 times harder. And I think it might just be a trait for just for me, but I've seen that a lot of like women and people of color tend to put in that extra time and extra effort towards everything because opportunities feel like they're very limited, and that is a whole different conversation. That's a whole diversity conversation I won't go into now, but I think that was one of my main drivers. You know, I always had to be on. I had to always be learning new things. I always had to be coding, doing all sorts of stuff. Otherwise, my value that I had on myself would just disappear. But luckily, I've found a better balance now. And like you've basically said exactly, you've basically said it. You know, that is really, it is one of like the biggest fears and drivers of why some people just can't switch off. But just being mindful of that and being honest about it is really important. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, and then from Sam, who was the person who asked the previous question, he's saying, thanks, Pauline, for sharing your story and great tips, much appreciated around the work-life balance, I think.
Thank you, Sam.
Now we have a couple of them for Abdi. So here is thanking Abdi, and actually, so here is thanking everyone in the South Yorkshire branch and the speakers as well. If you have any, we have 5 more minutes. If you have any questions for Pauline or Abdi, please let us know.
I've got a question, Abdi, for you.
Okay.
So Abdi, again, fantastic presentation. Yeah. So thanks for coming as well, and it's great to hear. It's great to hear again. Just a couple of questions I have for you to start off with.
Yeah.
Your PG, your teaching that you're going to do, is that going to be IT specific at all?
Yes, it is. It's computer science, or computing specifically.
Yeah, and also, what is it for, sort of like primary school, secondary school, or college, or?
It's secondary and college level I'm aiming to do. So yeah, that's so secondary level.
And another question I've got for you as well is, what you've done quite a number of things in, you know, to sort of raise awareness of mental health. If you don't, what kind of things are you planning to do in the future, if you don't mind me asking, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I'm hoping to do a lot more work with my time at Manchester. So I'm moving to Manchester, starting at Manchester Metropolitan University, and there's a lot of opportunities to raise awareness. And I've been in contact with a friend who runs organisation. So I am just taking it step by step. So it's just slowly getting there. in raising
Awesome.
awareness. And
I also just want
If you need any help from me, let me know.
I just want to say to Abdi that it's a very inspiring story. It's not, you know, not all the time that you can hear discussions about failing and then being able to bounce back. So that's a really inspiring story. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think both of your stories have been really, really inspiring, and it's great to have sort of like fantastic people like you on board tonight.
Okay. So I guess, Andy, over to you for some final remarks, and thank you everyone for joining, and to our speakers again.
Cool. So everyone, thanks for coming to our second webinar on mental health tonight. I'd like to thank Eve. I'd like to thank Pauline and Abdi in particular for delivering two fantastic talks as well. Our next webinar will take place in June, so the date for that I'll just need to confirm, but I'm going to be doing a talk about software testing, but there's going to be a bit of a twist because I'm running it as a joint event between the South Yorkshire BCS branch of a specialist interest group in software testing. So there's going to be some discussion as well, some fun sort of exercises. I'm also going to be asking a few questions as well. So it's going to be a little different, but it's something to look forward to in June. So put that in your diaries, and the dates will be on the South Yorkshire BCS website soon. So please follow us on LinkedIn and if you've got ideas for events as well, or anything that you'd like to see us do, please also get in touch with one of the committee. So we've got myself, who's the chair of the South Yorkshire BCS branch. We've got Eve, who's the secretary and vice chair. And on another note as well, mental health is a very, very important topic, and I think it's great that we've both delivered the two webinars. The first one a couple of weeks ago, which I delivered my talk on, and so did Chad, and this one where Pauline and Abdi have delivered their talks as well. So make sure as well that it's in particular this time, it's to take care of yourselves, and also please check on each other as well. If you need to reach out to anybody else, please do so as well. And also, let's be there for one another, and let's also be kind to ourselves and kind to each other as well. Sometimes it's okay just to have a break and just to take things at a slower pace of life. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you all soon.
That's a really good ending thing, Andy, but I don't want to do that just yet because we have another question. Sorry about that.
No,
so we have a question to both of our speakers from ATA. So we excuse us for going over a minute or two, but I think it's quite important. They said, I completed uni last in InfoSec and made several applications, and I haven't had any positive feedback, and it's given me psychological effects. Any tips on basically applying for jobs and not getting any positive results?
I'm gonna leave Abdi. I'm gonna let Abdi lead with that question because I think he has the most, based on his PowerPoint, a lot of experience with that.
Yeah. So my advice would be keep going. There's always an opportunity, and also networking is very vital. Maybe you want to join the local organisation that might in your field, or also speak to people. You know, it's not, you know, there's some people might be in a similar boat, and you can always share experience to be able to do things, approach things differently, and also handle rejection with confidence, because I think it's not easy having the rejection in the first place, but having the confidence to be able to bounce back and continue with the application is one mindset that has helped me with my job search in the past.
That's great. Thank you. So back to you, Andy, for one last time.
Okay. Am I okay to sort of add to that question as well, please. So I also when I was graduated had a lot of job rejections as well, and and I think, like Abdi says, keep persevering and keep going, and that's because I found it tricky to get a job as well, and I found it quite difficult to cope. So networking is definitely important, but also explore sort of different avenues and stuff like that. There may be people who you may meet who may be able to point you in the right direction, and just keep going. But finally, it's great to see you all again, and thanks so much for coming as well. And thanks so much for coming as well. It's great to see you all. Our next event will take place in June. The date is yet to be confirmed, but it's going to be a really good webinar with some interactive discussions as well about testing as well. So it's a joint event run by the South Yorkshire BCS branch and the Specialist Interest Group in Software Testing. So take care of yourselves, and it's great to see you all again, and we'll see you in June.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.